somebody that demanded to see my ID at the very beginning. It's like,
That's for my license too. I got the license number.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It was like very
16
aggressive.
years I never had that. Wow.
His shirt was unbuttoned a lot as well.
Was that your shirt?
He went out at the bottom. It was like unbuttoned like from the bottom up to like, the bottom of his chest. So I raised his attention as I was hot. So that was good.
I guess are we out of chairs?
I think so.
Okay.
Well,
Okay,
yeah, one here.
Look at the plastic one. Yeah, we can use Gigi's, I guess.
Is she here?
You can just hang out in here.
You use this.
Okay.
She just said, what, who? And I just closed the door. And then Casey's doing inside sales, so she's new. This is like the weekly training, so most people here are agents, except for the people you already know. Andrew, Mr. Turdy, me, and Terry is the agent and does compliance stuff for us too. And then the other thing too, just to like remind you guys that the virtual assistant Carla is the main point of contact for anything that you guys need. Basically, Lauren's like in the process of training her so she can do everything that Lauren can. So if you have any things you need that aren't in like the new agent resources, Google Sheet, you can't like search there first. You can use Control F and search a word in any spreadsheet to find something. If you can't find it there, then reach out to Carla. And then if Carla, for whatever reason, can't do it, then Lauren will obviously get involved and help.
Good. Andrew, are we all set up with the computer? Everything's good? Excellent. Yeah, so like John said, we're gonna start off with do some role play. I'm gonna be the seller a little bit. I'll be the agent a little bit too. So who wants to start? I trust that everybody's 100% locked down on all the scripting now, right? Josh and Tara, feeling very confident. Where's your notebook, Tara?
It's over here. It's within arm's reach.
Yeah. Markle, what do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, and hang on too, and then Victoria too, because you haven't met a lot of people too, right?
Yes,
You sort of
except
met
for
some
you,
people.
I think, but you're new. Okay.
Okay, you pretty much met everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. So,
So Markle, you want to go first?
Why not?
All right. So what do you are you feeling good about all the different scripting from the?
I'm starting to get most nailed down, and there's still some things I guess
All right.
getting it word for word is kind of tough. So I mean, it's
Okay.
kind of situational, I guess.
Let's give it a try. All right. So at the beginning of a meeting, you show up, right? It's a typical meeting. They're expecting a cash offer. You're going to come in. You know that they're probably not going to go that route based on what information you have. So you show up at the door, knock, come in. What do you say? How do you usually pick off the meeting?
So first knock on the door, take a step back, and then you turn to the side just because when they open up the door, it's like less confronting. And then basically just go and introduce myself. And hey, I'm Mark with Four Brothers. Thanks for having us over. How's your day going? Start small talk, and then in order to start the walkthrough, if there's multiple people, I like to ask like who's going to give me the tour, or you can start like typically how this works is we come in. If you don't mind, show me around the house. Let me know if any upgrades you've done, if anything that like made you move to the house, if anything that you feel is special to it, unique. Then if you don't mind, just show me around. Then we can sit down, take a look at the numbers. If we find something that works for you, great. If not, no worries. We won't buy every house that we go into.
Okay. All right, that's good. So why do you ask them about the unique part? Stuff for me.
I think just because that like gives you other things to build rapport on.
Okay.
I mean, if they like point out like, oh, like I really love this island, like it's oversized, and you can just go like, yeah, that's great. Like, can't even imagine how heavy that was bringing it up here for the people who installed it. And did you guys choose the colors? Like, where'd you get it from? Stuff
Okay.
like that.
Gotcha. And then and how long do you usually spend on the walkthrough?
I'd say it depends. Sometimes more people are like more interactive. You can kind of
Sure.
interrupt the conversation.
Right.
I'd say typically like around 20 minutes or so, 20, 30 minutes or so.
Okay. So let's say you've done the walkthrough, you've done the rapport building as best you can, you're talking about whatever is going on in the house, right? So you get back down to kind of where you started, and we're just like standing there.
Mhm.
So let's go from there.
Okay. So I'd be like, yeah, so you want to sit down and take a look at the numbers and see if we have a fit for you.
Sure.
If not, no worries. And then I guess from what we
No,
talked
script
about
it,
before.
script it,
Okay.
script it.
So based on after talking to you for a little bit, I feel like our cash offer isn't going to be anything that you're going to be interested in. It sounds like you're trying to get the most out of your property as possible, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the most part, I mean, I'm right there with you. I would definitely try to get the most that I can out of this property. So when people choose to sell, there are two routes you can go typically. You can sell
Sorry,
through-
so let me ask you, why are you starting with that part, you know, cash offer's not gonna work for you?
just to like kind of put it in their mind, and then I guess reinforce it through what we talk about, that they kind of realize that we're right, or
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think where you were getting ready to go is probably the right path for the scripting, right? There's kind of two options. I'm not sure you want to foreclose that off, you know, right at the outset of the conversation, because you probably still don't, you know, you may have walked around for 15 minutes. It's unlikely that you have enough insight into what they actually want, their actual motivation to know for sure, unless they're like, oh, almost, you know,
Yeah.
something close. Even then, I still wouldn't do it. Like, I think you want to present kind of both options without telling them what is right for them at the beginning. Right?
So basically, you'd have them eliminate that part?
Yes.
But yes, so just don't rule out the cash offer part. You can basically skip that, it sounds like you're saying, and
That's
just go right to the
exactly right.
transit, to
Yeah.
the explain the two options.
even if it is like a situation where they owe like pretty much close to like what it's going to sell for.
Yeah, I would
Not
still
really
skip it
alcohol.
and just explain the two options, because that's like entirely neutral, right?
Right.
Like, they don't know, they don't understand, obviously, they don't understand that the cash offer is not gonna work for them, right? Because
You know, they took the appointment, you know, so they still have that in their mind.
So it's, I think you still want to just kind of like, option one, option two, in your education mode, you're explaining to them, right? And then then you can kind of like get into the specifics of their situation. And say like, so, and then, you know, just explain it to them, you know, you owe this, whatever, you know, you can have that. But I think, especially at the beginning, before you know kind of all the details, you know, like, you might get like the rare person that is like willing to bring money to the closing table. Who knows, right? I think you just don't want to like start directing them or telling them what they want at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is, what do you guys think, right? When you heard him say the cash offer is not going to work for us, I mean, what do you think that the seller would be thinking at that point?
It's not gonna work for me. If he's not gonna give me enough money, so I'm just gonna rule it out automatically.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a possibility. It might just kind of like shut them down or shut them
Yeah.
off a little bit, you
They
know?
wasted
They're
my
kind of like
time,
just
yeah.
start, right, they're wasting my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, they
Why
need-
you're here if the cash offer's not.
Right, like why you're still here,
Yeah.
yeah, you know?
And they maybe just saying, when are you gonna leave, when are you gonna leave?
Right.
Instead of, let me listen to what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good, yeah. So that's basically why, you know, we want to keep them in an open kind of state, basically, even if we know that it's unlikely our cash offer will work. We still need them to listen to us, and we still need to come from the non-commercial place of education. And so if we're saying the cash offer won't work, you know, it could close them off, and then also, then we keep talking, so like, okay, well, what's their angle then, sort of, you know? Because the cash offer's not gonna work, so okay, well, what are you trying to like sell me on now? As opposed to if you just start educating them, I think they're a little less defensive as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And-
okay, well, that's good then, that's good to
That's
to
yeah,
identify that
that's-
stuff.
and you know, and that's that's understandable. Like, you're trying to sort of, you know, kind of steer them in the right direction. Like, you know what's best for them. So I mean, I get it. But I think if there's one thing, like the one piece of leverage that any of us would have in an appointment is the cash offer. And so the longer you don't tell them that, the more, you know, as soon as you tell them what the offer is, you've basically shown your hand. So they're gonna kind of check out to some degree, right? And then they're gonna be sort of, like John said, more suspicious of whatever it is that you're now talking about. So like, that is like truly the only kind of leverage you have. So the longer you don't tell them, the more they're gonna remain engaged.
And I think too, when you're first sitting down with them, you still want to build that rapport.
Yeah.
And you want to start asking open-ended questions. Well, you know, have you ever been in, you know, other than purchasing a house, have you ever sold a house before? Do you know the process of it? Do you understand what goes through it? You know, have you looked around the neighborhood to see what some of the other houses have sold for? Do you have any idea what it costs? You know, what you're looking for?
Right.
It's more than questions to get them talking.
Definitely. Yeah, you can do it, you'd like go a little negative, you know, why not do it through a realtor? Why not sell it to an agent? It's a great house, right? You know, you get more money.
Reverse
You
psychology.
can sort of tell them that,
Yeah.
you know, kind of plan, because you know, obviously you get more money by selling on the market with an investor,
Yeah,
right? So
you're-
why would you do that?
Yeah, and if you're there educating them too, it's, you know, their defenses go down automatically, like,
Mhm.
oh, they're actually here, you know, to help me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why don't we like back up? So we sit down.
Okay. Well, I guess I just want to throw out there too. I think sometimes it is kind of important just to disqualify that the cash offer is not going to be that big, because I mean there have been some times where I've spent the whole time and kind of didn't discuss the cash offer until the end, and then it's like the shock value of what our actual offer would be, that it like kind of closes them off to everything else that we have. So I mean with like Megan, that one that I caught cold calling, when I talked to her cold calling, she was talking about the cash offer and didn't mention listing at all. So
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not sure if that wasn't like pushed hard enough in the meeting, or
Yeah,
or
well,
if it, like she said she was like in a shock mode after she
Was it a
got
shock?
that cash offer. So
Yeah, well, a lot of them, most of the people that you guys are meeting with are going to be like appalled of what the cash offer is. That's just another reason why we basically we're trying to avoid giving it to them essentially, like what the cash offer is.
okay.
So that's why we're not closing the door to the cash offer being a possibility. So they're still listening to us, and you know we never know, like maybe it will be. And then we're educating them on it, leaving the door open on the cash offer, but through the education process, like helping them realize that listing it is the option that they're going to end up wanting to go. And so then typically, or a lot of times, Kevin is finding that they're not asking what the cash offer is at all. Like he doesn't have to give them the number. Or if he does, he'll give them like sort of a range. There's other tricks. Maybe you can talk about that. But so
Yeah.
like that's how we're doing it, because we're not saying like, oh, our cash offer is 100,000, because that will like a lot of times close it off, freak them out, like just crush the rapport. Yeah.
This is a good question, Mark, and like a very real issue. And I think the way to kind of overcome it is, I think if somebody's still kind of like waiting for the cash offer, you've been there for an hour and you leave, whatever it is, so what's the cash offer? Like, that's a pretty good sign that you haven't educated them enough on the two options, generally speaking, such that they have come to the conclusion on their own that this is whatever the cash offer may be is probably like, I didn't realize how investors work, and it's probably going to be bad. It's not going to get me where I want to be. So they haven't come to that conclusion on their own. They still have some hope that it's going to work. And part of that is kind of there's two options, right? You know, you can sell it to an investor like me or somebody else. You can put it on the market, get full market value, pros and cons to both, right? You know, more money on the market, a little more inconvenience, opposite for the investor, that whole scripting. And then you say, you want to kind of like plant those seeds. Of course, as an investor, any investor is going to try and make a profit, right?
Right.
Nobody's going to be like, no. Why? Right? Maybe sure. So obviously, an investor can't offer you market value. Otherwise, an investor would just buy houses on the market. Duh. Right? So like a lot of these people are thinking that there's investors can come in and like pay market value or something crazy. So, but if you say it like that, they're going to be like, oh, right, yeah. And then you say, there's a lot of transactional costs, right? If we buy it, there's, when an investor buys it, they pay closing costs for them, they pay your closing costs, then they fix it, renovate it, then they resell it, they pay more closing costs, then they pay the buyer commission, a lot of transactional costs. So you have to kind of deduct all of those, plus there's going to be a profit, plus, all the work that goes into it. So that's why it's going to be, it's going to be less. And then you're like kind of priming them, right? You're not telling them anything about us, you're telling them about investors in general, right? Does that make sense? So you're sort of planting the seed, they're getting an understanding, that way they're sort of in their mind kind of like thinking about it a little bit, like, okay, like, yeah, this is probably going to be a lot. I didn't realize all this, so the cash offer, I guess, is not going to be market value, right? And then especially if you're like, I think you tell them what you think the market value of the house is, and help kind of get them grounded, right? So I think that's a real issue. That's probably something that everybody will encounter, and I think it's probably by avoiding talking about the investor, what investors do, is how you kind of get in that situation. You're sort of avoiding telling the cash offer, and maybe kind of avoiding telling them about investors in general as well, when you need to be educating them on both, so they come to that conclusion themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then is that in this now, or can we add that into this? That blurb that you said? Or is that what section is that under?
There
So make sure they know
is, like, the two things is scripting in
The
here?
two options?
Two options in here.
Uh-huh.
We could probably add a little bit more language about like the closing cost piece.
Yeah, like that
That'd
whole
be
riff
helpful.
about educating on how the investor numbers
I know
work.
Tara wants it.
Yep.
I've heard the videos where you guys talk about it to the person, but I don't think it's in the scripting. So
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll add that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful, actually. So-
Yeah, and they're in their mind, then they can start doing the numbers kind of on their own and be like, oh shit, it's gonna be like a lot lower than what I was like hoping. I was like holding out. Like a lot of times, they're just holding out a hope that like an investor's just gonna come and pay like basically full price for the house.
Right.
You know, or maybe they think that it's like this is a good area and prices are gonna go up. So you're like the kind of investor just gonna like buy it and like wait and hope the prices go up. Right, so they may have those kind of ideas in their head, so that's where that education, you know, helps them understand that that's not how we buy stuff.
Especially when, I mean, some people don't realize now how much closing costs are, because it's like probably $10,000 on each side for each
Or more,
transaction.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can do that. You can tell them, you're like, so a house at this price point, you know, that's gonna be like about 24 grand
Yeah.
to close, and I got another 19 when I
Yeah.
resell it. Plus, I'm gonna put about 75 in it, and they're all of a sudden
They're like, that's half the how much
like,
it's
oh,
worth.
neat. Right. So, and then you can say other things too. You know, plus, you know, like we saw, there was an issue, foundational issue, or water. So, any investor is going to deduct that. That's a serious issue out of what they're offering. Tara, what are we trying to say? Like when we talk about, if we're trying to educate on how to sell a house, what vantage point are we coming from? How are we presenting that?
Well, what the
Like what
market
we
is
would
saying.
do, like if we sold your house, or something else? How we sell our houses.
Oh, how
right?
we sell our houses,
We're
yeah.
sort of coming from, you always want to kind of be one step removed, right? So when you're telling them about what an investor does, not my offer would exclude this, this, and this. An investor offer, right?
Mhm.
So you're one step removed. It's less in your face. You're sort of educated. It's more kind of educational, right?
And so you avoid people freaking out.
You slowly ease them into, this is not gonna be the number that you want.
Right, this is not gonna be the option that's gonna work for you most likely. So then what other options do you have?
Yeah.
So most people, yes, Tara.
Just a couple things, because the last two appointments I went on, and they both did this, they wanted to show me the mail piece that they had gotten, which said, you know, part of the reason they wanted to do the appointment was that there would not be a lowball offer.
Uh-huh.
So.
Why? What did the mail piece say?
A lot of times it says like there's we won't give you a lowball offer or something like that. We're not like other investors, right? Well, so what's a lowball offer?
Right, yeah. Well,
What is it?
Yeah, what's a lowball
Is it
offer?
40%? Is it 20%? Is it 80%? What is a
Right.
lowball offer? Does anyone know? No? Okay, right, because it's not like a
It's
defined
just less
thing.
than what you want, that's what a lowball offer is.
Right, so
Less than what you want.
right, so
Pick a
our
number.
offer, right? We don't lowball. We offer half of what your house is worth. It's not a lowball.
That's probably more than, but I feel like that's still like, probably more than what they would hear from some other investors.
Right. I mean, it's with the cost and profit. I mean, it's a reasonable investor offer. So yeah, don't get hung up or feel shy, I guess, about that. I mean, at least.
No, I
No.
came right back at him and said, no, not interested in giving you a lowball offer at all. I'm interested in helping you here. So let's talk about, you know, what were you hoping I would do for you today?
Right. Good. That's
good.
That, great. Yeah.
And so you can also like tell them, help them understand, like what does a lowball offer, right, mean? We're not gonna give you a lowball offer for an investor, right? So don't compare it to the market.
Right.
Our offer is gonna be competitive for an investor.
Which I feel like when they see that, they think
Exactly.
they're not gonna give me an investor price, but that's what
Yeah.
we are.
Right.
Right.
Right. And and a marketing piece is trying to get the phone to ring, people to call us. So that's how the language is structured. So, and that's our job as salespeople to navigate the sometimes difficult conversation. And so Tara, the way you did it, I thought was good. Right. And there's other ways you can do it as well. You basically want to just sort of not go down that path.
No,
about-
just bring it back to.
bring it back to
you know,
them.
Yeah, what are you hoping I'd do for you?
All right, so let's, we wanna give it another crack here? So
Yeah.
we sit down, right? We've just done the walkthrough. You've been telling me about my island, how much you liked it.
How happy it is.
It was very good.
I was like, wait, you have an island now? Like an island.
Thank you for saying all those nice things about my island. Marcos,
Of course. Beautiful island.
what do we do now?
So typically when people are deciding to sell, they've got two options. You can go the traditional method through a realtor, and most people do end up doing that. Then you can also sell as is to an investor, and typically that'll get you a little bit less money than you could on the retail market, but it's certainly more convenient. When you do work with an investor, you basically go into contract. They're going to do a home inspection, but they're going to be fixing everything that comes up during the home inspection. So that's the as is that an investor, or that you would work with an investor. But you can actually sell as is on the market. I'm not sure if you were aware of that or.
Yeah, I was aware.
Okay, so yeah, basically that's a different type of as is though. So you're basically just saying that you're not going to do any upgrades, you're not going to do any repairs, but you're more than welcome to do a home inspection. And
So what are you trying to convey to me right now? About why are you telling me this stuff? Like, why is this in the script?
it's just giving them the two options.
Yes, but why do we want to give them the two options?
Because typically we're working with people who are trying to sell their house as is, and if the cash offer doesn't work, then pitching it to them that they can sell on the open market as is I guess a reasonable alternative.
Right, and you're also trying to demonstrate
Expertise.
exactly, and demonstrating expertise, like probably the number one requirement in order to demonstrate expertise is that the person you're explaining this to has to understand, right? They have to follow you. If they don't follow you, it's like kind of lost cause, right? So, not like we're talking about. I think you're hitting all the points. Like you're hitting all the key points, but you want to slow it down, right? You want to go and fill it in, make it a little more narrate it a little bit more, right? Because most people aren't going to be able to follow that. Like sell it as is on the market. Like wait, what? And you want to break it down. You know, make it easy, accessible, and you're explaining it like in a way that there's no ambiguity about like what's going on. I don't have any questions, right?
Right.
So plus yeah. So like how would you do how would you back up? You're saying most people have two options, right?
Mhm.
Investor, or they can put it on the market. Let's focus like on like
So like within those two routes,
Pros and
you've got
cons.
options, yeah.
right.
So you can sell as is to an investor, which means that they're going to deal with anything that comes up, like anything from that point on, anything that they find they're going to deal with, and they're not going to back out of the deal. The other option would be selling it as is on the open market. That's a different kind of as is than it would be when you're working with an investor. Typically, it's just saying that you're not going to come in, you're not going to do any upgrades, you're not going to fix anything that comes up at home inspection, but you're saying that they're more than welcome to do a home inspection, and they will.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what happens is they'll have their home inspection, and they'll have a certain amount of days to where if they find something, they can get out the deal still.
Okay.
It's called the home inspection contingency.
So that's all good information. I just you want to remember, like, kind of break it down. So it's more like, think about it more like you really want to emphasize the point, right? That investor and market, and with an investor, you're going to get less money. It's going to be more convenient, right? If you put it on the market, you're going to get market value, which is going to be more money than an investor can offer you. Even with closing costs and commissions, you're always going to net more by putting it on the market. But there are more hurdles to get over, right? If you have an open house, you have showings, people are going to want to come by it on a Tuesday at 7:30 with their agent, right? Of course, you're going to have to leave for an hour. There's just more intrusion with working with an agent, right? I mean, this is what it is, right? But you do get more money. So there's pros and cons to both, right? And I think whenever anybody's thinking about their stuff selling their house, they kind of have to figure that out themselves. Like, how much inconvenience are they willing to take on in order to get market value, or is it worth it to them to get a little bit less and have it be a more streamlined process, right? And that's a question I can't answer. Obviously, that you're gonna have to answer that question. So like that however long it took me to say that, right? I'm just basically, now there's no ambiguity. Now they know the investor offer is going to be less. They know the benefit of it, and they know the market value is that going on the market is going to be more hassle, but more money. You've already kind of like helped plant that initial seed that this investor thing, you ain't getting market value, obviously, right? And then so now I think that you see what I'm saying about like sort of setting like a clear framework and making sure that they understand exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Paint a picture.
Yeah. Do you want to have someone else try it?
Yeah.
Or like, do you want?
I can try.
Okay.
Is it the same part?
Yes, yeah, same part,
Okay.
just the two options thing. You're sort of, so you've done sort of the walkthrough and now you're sitting down and you're starting the education.
Okay. So, typically when you go to sell a house, there's 2 routes that you can take. The first one is to go through an investor, which is definitely an easier process for you, but you're not going to get as much money out of it. Typically with them, they're going to make an offer. They may or may not do an inspection, and whatever they find, they're going to deal with it. You're going to sell it as is to them. So you're not going to have to do anything for them, and they're going to take whatever comes up. And then you can also sell on the market, which has a few more hurdles, but you're going to get more money out of it. You're going to get more of the market value for your house. When you get a buyer for that, they're going to come in, they're going to do inspection. We typically try and get it down to about 7 days, so we don't waste 2 to 3 weeks on this person who might just back out of the deal. But you're going to sell it to them as is as well. It's just a little bit different. You're going to sell it to them, and they're going to come have a home inspection, but you're basically saying, I'm not going to fix anything. I'm not going to make repairs if you find something wrong, and I'm not going to do any upgrades if you don't like the paint color. So when you go that way, you are going to get more money. There's a little bit more work that we have to do for it, but we typically can still get it done pretty quickly, and you're going to get a lot more money out of it. Sorry.
That's pretty
Okay.
good. That's pretty good. That's right, yeah.
I think that gives you a pretty good idea.
So what's the one? Remember we were just talking to Tara about the perspective, vantage point that you're coming from, though.
Yeah, that was the one
This
thing
is,
you kind of.
oh yeah, this is how we sell
This
our
is
houses.
so when we So remember, you want to stay away from. This is what we would do.
Okay.
Like this is what we would do for you. This is what we do when we sell our houses.
Right.
Yeah. It's not even about them.
Yeah, right. It's just like, here, let me educate you.
Exactly.
Yeah, when we sell our houses,
Yeah.
what we do is,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, otherwise I thought that was pretty
I
good.
thought it was good. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Do you want to keep maybe going to other sections?
Let's
'cause-
let's keep going.
Yeah.
All right. So Tara, do you want to go?
Yeah.
All right. What's next? Tell me what's next in like let's say you've gone through. You told them the 2 things, right? You hear the 2 options. You've explained it. You've done a fantastic job, right? Your binder is not out, and they're like, wow, now I understand the process. This is very helpful information, Tara. What now?
Well,
What do you
now,
think?
let me ask you, have we already talked about marketing?
No.
Okay.
So this is, we did 2 options, right? We get to
Just
hit
the
them with
2
2 options,
options.
and now we're at the next, whatever comes after.
And I'll
that.
play the seller. So you explain the 2 options, and they say, well, I don't really want to deal with all that. I don't want to do the agent thing. I don't like the commissions. I don't want to have people come through. I just want to avoid that.
Right.
Right? That's a very common thing. You've probably heard that like 1,000 times, right? So that's my response to you've told me the 2 options, and that's my response.
Okay. And then refresh my memory. Then what were you hoping that you would get for your house then?
Well, I wanted an offer
Okay.
from you.
All right. And that's what we would do today. Guys, I'm blanking. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
All right.
All right. Andrew? Excellent news, Andrew. You're up.
No, please, I'm not ready.
Okay.
I'm
Andrew, what's the offer? Imagine you're back in the foyer at that guy's house, Willie Noonan's house. You're back in the foyer. He won't let you in. He wants to know the offer.
typically we would try to offer 60% of the home's value. So we will be like a typical investor and offer you a low ball, but we'll try to be on the high end and do 60%.
So that's too exact, right? You're like basically like previewing, right, what the offer's going to be. They're going to be like, I don't want 60%. Like,
Yeah.
So I'm confused. So what would we say then? Because we say that we don't lowball.
Well, let's
And
just
then-
go back to the thing that, like, I don't really want to deal with the hassle of putting on the market. I really am trying to avoid that. That's why I
Okay.
contacted you. So,
like if I could streamline it to investors and to where you didn't have to deal with the traditional hassle or the hassle of the traditional sale, would that be something you'd be interested in?
that is definitely a good sort of angle, but it's too early for that pitch. It's still way too early,
Okay.
right? 'Cause,
Okay.
you know, like they're still at the beginning of the meeting, so now you're like, you don't want to turn into like, I'm trying to get you to do something yet.
Yeah, because that's selling them on stuff and they're gonna get defensive. You know, we're still in the education mode. Here are the two options, and then we're on to the next sort of education part. You know, in like the scripting.
Are we on like the coming soon and like figuring out what the price would be?
Well, that's. I mean, you have to like sort of say
I know,
get
that's what I'm
there,
like.
right?
I'm like,
You can't
I
be
think
like,
that's what the script he
"Oh,
wants,
you
but
want
I
an
don't know how to
offer?"
get there.
Let me tell you about the coming soon. Yeah. Yeah, you have to you kind of get there. 'Cause,
Right.
you know, they're basically saying, and you're going to hear it all the time, right? I really don't. Doesn't sound that appealing to do it with an agent. Obviously, they don't want to because you're sitting in front of them, right? So you hear that like at least every other meeting, if not more. So you have to. How are you going to get by that? Gary?
I think I'd say, so, you know, let's take a look. I brought some comps with me. And, you know, I'll pull up on my iPad or my phone, whatever, we'll look at the pictures. Look to see what those houses look like compared to yours. And, you know, by the way, did you have a price in mind?
Good, right? So you're turning it back, you're asking a question. So I think that is an appropriate time to start talking about what their house may be worth on the market through the comps, right? But at that point, don't let anybody like browbeat you into feeling like I have to give you an offer. I mean, you just got there, right? You just saw the house. You're like, I can understand why you probably want to avoid having people come into your house and play with your island and everything, and that makes sense to me. Now that I've seen the house, and thank you again, it was very helpful. I have a better idea of kind of what I'm looking at. I'm just going to I'm going to take out my computer, and I want to look at the comps again now that I've seen it, right? So you're basically like, you know, shut up. I just got here, I just saw the house, like, you know, hold your horses, right? Sit down, okay, let's take a look. Maybe then you kind of sit down and do it together, right? Like, oh, your neighbor, you know, a lot that sometimes they'll have told you I want $550. It's like, well, your neighbor's house, which is fully renovated, sold for $425. And where did you get the number $550? You know, like, you know. So turn it back around on them, right? You're not ready to give them an offer yet because you just saw the house. So just sit down, look at the comps, because that's going to be key. You got to like, you can tell them what the as-is value is all day long, but until they see something else that's not coming just out of your mouth, it's not going to have nearly the impact.
Do that in reality check.
And so then after the two options, then in between two options and the pricing blurb, which I think is like what you're asking about, right? Then that's essentially where you're going over the comps with them.
Yeah, if they're like are kind of more aggressive, and like, you know, ideally you're still kind of chit chatting, building rapport or whatever, talking about God knows what. But if they're like, so I don't want to do that. What's the offer? You know, more kind of straightforward. You can say, well, let's look at the numbers. You know, it's helpful that I've seen the house now, but let's sit down. I'll show you the comps that I was looking at earlier, and then show them. Be like, and then you'll help calibrate them on what the actual market value of the house is, right? So that takes time. They'll look through it, and usually that's pretty impactful, right? They see pictures. They're gonna, unless they're totally unreasonable, you're gonna start to kind of get them down. Then you can start with, you can talk about like the importance of pricing, for example, right?
So like what percentages of the meetings though, are they the more aggressive kind, where they're really pressing you for an offer, we have to do that? And what percentage is it where you're still doing more than chit chat?
I think maybe 30, maybe 1 out of 3 they're like really pressing on the offer. But once you tell them, like if you've got somebody who's like that and you tell them, well, now that I've seen it and taken pictures, I'll be able to give you an offer, but I'm gonna need a little bit of time, but I'll be able to give you an offer. You've basically addressed it, right? Most people aren't going to be like, okay, can you tell me your offer? I'm like, I just told you that I need a little bit of time now that I've seen it, right? Remember that? So that part's easy to overcome. It's more like how do you overcome I don't really want to deal with the realtor part, but I still want a lot of money for the house. Is where like, you know, they want convenience. That's why you're there. But most people also want a lot of money.
Right.
So that's like the bigger obstacle. So you can tell them, you can just be like, yeah, I'll look at the offer when I get back to my office. You have to tell them that, just kind of tell them, now that I've seen it, I can work it up pretty quickly, but I do need a little bit of time to do that. However, let's look at these comps and I can kind of walk you through my thought process on the numbers, right? And then usually they'll be like, okay.
And so in the other 2/3 of the meeting, then what's the transition from the two options to the pricing?
So
Sort of recommend.
most of the time, they're not going to like really press you. Like maybe 2 out of 3, 2/3 of the time, they're not going to be like, "What's the offer? What's the offer?" They're going to be more like, "I'm not really interested in selling with an agent," and then just kind of like not say anything else. Just be like, "I really want to kind of avoid that," but they don't really give you anything else to, then they just sit there.
Well, even if you ask why,
Well, they're going to know. You can ask them why, right? But you've just sort of told them, they're going to be like, I don't want to do any of the shit that you just said.
Could you kind of bridge into the part about, part when we sell houses, part of the way that we sort of shorten that time period of you being, pushed out of your house and stuff is by doing one open house that's just an hour. We price it properly, we get a lot of interest right away into it.
Yeah, but what am I going to say about that?
That you don't want to do that at all.
Too early.
Okay.
Too early, right? It's
Right.
very good. That's ultimately how you're going to get these people to sign up.
Right.
But they have not come to the realization that they want to list it yet.
Right.
So
They're still at, I just want to cash.
You have to get them to that point where they're like, shit, like I am going to have to deal with this.
What about just asking them flat out, what's more important to you? Convenience?
You can do that, yeah.
Or getting more money?
Definitely a
And
good
they're going to
question.
give you the answer, it's going to be more money, so that's a segue in. Well, let me explain how we can get there and get you more money. And
It's a good question. I think it's still too early to say, let me show you how we can get you there in the meeting. But it's a good question. A lot of times I think you're going to get a vague answer, like somewhere in the middle. I want both. Or I'd like to get more money. I'd like to get as much as possible. Okay. And so it's like, okay. So then, but why you can ask them why why you're sitting in front of an investor. Obviously, an investor isn't going to be able to pay you the most money. So why not just do it through the market or whatever? You can probe that a little bit. But it's too early to start telling them how you can get them there, because they haven't decided they're willing to list it yet. If you give them over that hurdle, right?
So then after the two options, then how's a typical meeting kind of go? To the pricing transition and so on.
So they're going to be they're going to basically be some variation of like, unless it really is a cash appointment, well, I don't want to deal with that. Like, they have the equity. If it's like a real cash appointment, it's going to be a little bit different. But for most of these appointments, right, they're going to have they're going to be like, I don't really want to do all that with the agent. I'm trying to avoid that, something like that. And you got to pick back up, and then kind of keep carrying the baton to help educate them and make them realize that of the two options, even though listing it is not super palatable, it's ultimately going to be a better outcome for them, and they'll get them to sort of come to the conclusion that it's worth it. So you've got you still have quite a ways to go there. So what would you? That's what we're kind of talking about now. Like, how would you go into it? So comps is a really easy way, because then you start grounding their expectations on like what the market value is. So you show them the comps, and you want to emphasize, right? This is kind of what it would sell for on the market, right? Don't forget, this is with an agent on the market, right? You want to continue to pound that in their head, right? And obviously an investor is not going to be in the 500s, or you want to keep planting those seeds in there, right? So they're like kind of getting the picture, and then you can I usually will spend 20 or 30 minutes just on the comps, like talking with them, look at this house, blah blah blah, right? So that part of it is you're going to help calibrate their expectations on what the actual market price is, and B, you want to sort of be like planting those seeds, like you can get this much money, or you can get something that's probably going to be a lot less for an investor. You just want to keep throwing that in there, right? So how do you want to do it? Like,
Well, so when you're saying the pricing blurb, then the next blurb, right? So I think that's what sort of they're trying to get, right? So it's like, so we
The
did the two options
transition.
thing, that makes sense, right? And then is it then the comps and then the pricing blurb? Is it then the pricing blurb is in it as you're doing the comps? Like how is it all like a
Sure.
Does that where you like transition to how we sell homes? Like, oh, you want to get the most for your house? I completely understand this. One of the core pillars of our company. This is how we do it.
right. So I think you want to kind of go through the comps and make sure that they have. The next thing would be comps, and make sure that they have at least a realistic perspective on what the market value is, and then also kind of continue to indicate that an investor offer would be lower. It was kind of a continuation of the two options, but you're showing them pictures and because a lot of people have like a crazy idea about what the market value is, right? So you want to help kind of calibrate price, and then once they're kind of seeing that, go into the more education on the pricing or the coming soon. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll add that into, like you do the comps basically in between two options and the pricing. And that's where the comps like video that Kevin did would come in as to how he goes over it in the meetings. Okay, so then we're talking about pricing.
Yeah, so let's talk about pricing. Tara? All right, so you've just looked at the comps. Okay, like, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, it looks like, my house would be, like you said, 500 to 525 if I put it on the market. Like, I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
What
well,
now?
Well, Kevin, what we've found as, experience has taught us as, being investors that pricing a house from the get-go is critically important. And there's ways we go about doing that. We didn't always get it right. We've been doing this since 2010 and over time. And we follow this process for every single house that we sell. And that is, what we'll do is put the property on coming soon with Zillow, because it's different than putting it on the MLS, listing service, as a coming soon, because it is rather an anonymous way for us to find out what's the right price for this house. We can sort of test the water, so to speak. And it doesn't take very long. We can put the house up on Zillow for maybe a week, if that, and measure the activity. If we price the house right, we're going to get a lot more activity. For example, what that looks like would be 100 clicks or more, saves, things like that. If it's not priced right, then some benchmarks that we use, the activity looks more like maybe 30 or 50 clicks. So we can make those adjustments in that time period with that immediate feedback, so that we can get the price right before we actually go live with marketing the property.
Okay, why are you telling me this?
Because this is what you want me to do.
Fair enough.
Well, it was good. So your perspective, right? You did a good job
Yes.
saying, coming from our perspective, price of 2010. Here's how we price our properties. Then I felt like you slipped a little bit into more of the here's what we would do for you kind of frame a little bit towards the end.
Oh,
But at the
okay.
beginning in particular, I thought it was really good, and it's going to be hard to kind of hold that frame clearly in your guys' minds, because we want to sell them, we want to like close them and sign them up. We have to sort of stay disciplined about only talking about like what we're doing with our houses, how we sell our houses, sharing from that experience.
Do you think it'd be helpful to discuss how you would get feedback on the MLS from like a normal agent? How it's kind of like they might fill out a survey, or it's not going to be real time like Zillow where you can just track the clicks?
In terms of saying why Zillow is more helpful?
Yeah, why it's just like an immediate like response from the
Sure.
market.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to flesh that out, I think that's fine to add, And I think what you're going to say, right, is like with the getting into the clicks and the views is probably a little too premature.
Well,
You want to keep a little more high level.
It was still like a little bit kind of like Mark. You're just kind of speeding through it, right? Like you didn't even really say what Zillow was coming soon. You were sort of like,
Oh, right.
like you're just sort of. So you want to have when you're talking, don't just like barf out the scripting, you wanna like think about why you're telling them.
Well, that's where you wanna bring in, well, we sold 190 houses since
Sure,
2010.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
build your credibility.
Yeah, you can mention that too, and we still can't figure out exactly how to price our houses, and we've sold this many. So here's what we do to
This
try
is
to
how
figure
we-
out.
Yeah, this is how we've been successful.
Right.
So at this point in the meeting, are you trying to, Andrew Knowles, are you trying to sell them, or are you trying to educate them?
I would think that we are still trying to, I guess, educate them.
Correct, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because
100%.
we don't want to, come off like we're salesmen right now. So
Exactly. So we're in education mode. We're demonstrating expertise through this conversation, right, Tara? Talking about pricing, how we sell houses. We're explaining to them why we're like, we've done a million times what we do. This is how like a professional would do it. And in doing so, you're showing expertise, and you're also, without talking about their house, tempering helping them realize that it's not a good idea to overprice their house on the market. But you haven't gotten to that conversation with them yet, right?
Right.
So you're telling them why it's so important to price it right instead of overprice it, which is going to pay dividends later when you actually get them to sign up, because they're going to have ideally bought into this kind of system that you've explained.
Yeah, because that's a problem that we're running into. We've run into a lot, right? With a lot of our listings that we've signed up, is the prices are too high and they just don't sell. And so we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. So like, along with getting them signed up, one of our other like sort of big missions is to educate them and essentially convince them why they want to price it a little more aggressively on the low side, because then that helps us make sure it sells and makes our lives a lot easier in managing these listings on the back end. So it's like we want to sell them, but it's almost as important to make sure we sign them up at the right price. Otherwise, we don't get paid, and so it's pointless to even sell them.
I always told people, pricing is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because if you price it too high, people are gonna see it.
Mhm.
They're gonna not even look at it. They're not even come look, they're not even gonna see it. I mean, come to physically see it, sorry. But, if you price it right, you have a contract coming on this one, I just went on Thursday night.
Nice. Right.
So I mean, but,
Yeah, so that's great.
he bought into what I was saying. I don't clap yet.
Oh.
Yeah.
They did a pre-inspection.
But yours sounds like you really emphasize that, right?
I say it's the most important thing.
Right, so you have to really
Hands
emphasize, when
down.
you're going over the
Yes.
pricing thing, really emphasize it, like.
Especially here, I feel like a lot of times they price it a little bit under because it gets so many more people to look at it. I know
Yeah,
that
yep.
when we were
I've told them
looking,
that. I've said pricing it a little bit low
Yeah.
is actually can be advantageous because it creates urgency.
when we
More
were looking at
buyers.
houses, we looked at one that was $320 and it was beautiful, it's fully renovated, but it was like 10,000 below like the Zillow and Redfin estimates, and ended up selling for $260. So which that doesn't happen every time, but there was like 15 of us in a bidding war, so it wasn't like all he did was price it a little bit lower and got so many people to come out and see
You
it,
can
which
tell that
who
story.
may not have come to see it if he had listed it at $350.
Well, that's a great anecdote to
You should
share.
give that example.
Right, I mean, you can say either a house that you bought, or you can say one of our houses that we sold, or something like that,
Yeah.
either way.
If you're putting numbers to it, you're making it real.
So, okay, cool, so that's good. So then, we've got like 5 minutes. So, okay, so we did the two options, right? Then we're showing the comps, then we're talking about the
We're
pricing.
going into pricing, so here we are, like with, you've shown them some comps and be like, oh, but, remember that house we looked at that was on the market for 144 days, right? And then they dropped the price. So this is what we do, when we sell. So, just sort of FYI for your information, Mr. Seller, right? This is how we do it, kind of the two keys to selling a house, right? Price and marketing, right? Because you have a kind of a whole scripting around both. So it's critical that we aren't sitting for our houses. We can't afford to sit on the market for 144 days. I mean, that's just not like a non-starter for us. So, we've learned, and sometimes the hard way, that pricing is sort of critical. It's really such a key component. So we spend a lot of extra time, my partners and I, figuring out price for every single house that we flip, our houses. Even though we've done this 190 times, we still go through the same exercise, looking at comps and making sure we're kind of at the right point. Because if it's overpriced, it's going to sit. And then you explain kind of how that's detrimental, and then go into the coming soon or whatever, right? But you're kind of like really educating them. You want to take sort of an authoritative stance, right? this is how you do it. If you want to sell a house the right way, like we do, this is how you do it. Yeah, but I'm telling you this for your benefit. Yeah, you're lucky that I'm here. Yeah. So does that make sense? Right? And then so think about that, what you're trying to do at that part of the meeting. So you're in educational mode, still, very much, not at selling, building expertise and explaining to them kind of what they need to make sure they understand about pricing. So once you get to the sales part at the very end of the meeting, that pricing conversation, you've already had it. We were talking about it in the abstract. Okay? You good?
Yeah, so okay, so then, so what should we hit on next though, right? So like pricing coming soon, right? So typically, are you saying in your meetings generally, are you saying most of the scripting around pricing and then sort of following up by coming soon?
Yes.
Or are you kind of integrating these two?
Yeah, let's start with pricing and then, generally I'll talk about coming soon, not always. But yes, you can just do both, like right and right. Because like you're saying, talking about pricing, how important it is, and blah, blah, blah. And in fact, and what I would recommend, no matter who if you end up selling with an agent or whoever it is you end up working with, I would encourage you to raise the issue of doing a coming soon for Zillow. Now, what is that? You've heard of Zillow, right? Yeah, then explain it, right? So you've kind of told them about the importance of pricing, but you want to make sure you kind of hit that point, hammer that home, and then say, this is one of the tools that we use to make sure that we do it right.
Okay. And then after that, transitioning to the marketing piece, so how does that typically go?
So you talk about pricing. Ideally, at this point, you've been there an hour. You're like chatting them up. You're building rapport, and then you can say, as I mentioned earlier, the other key component, the second, of the two really critical things, pricing and marketing, and then do that. So you're still educating. You're still sort of telling, and now you're telling them, A, like you're demonstrating expertise, and B, you're still advancing the ball in terms. So once you get to that part at the end where you're going to sell them, they have bought into it. You're like saying, oh yeah, these websites is kind of a racket. We've learned over the years we pay $12,000 a month, and here are the benefits that we've gotten from doing it. It's just critical marketing, blah 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 blah. But you're not talking about their house. You're talking about our house, right? So by the end, you've done a good job. They're like, like, oh, that's, it seems like they've sold a lot of houses, but maybe they can sell my house. Sound pretty good, right?
What happens if they ask comparatively, how many houses have we sold to other agencies? If you look at
What do you mean?
if they're oh, I get that you sold 190 houses, but Remax sells 1,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, but not.
I know it's not one Remax, but that's even still
There's not going to come up.
Okay.
I've never.
But what do we?
Okay.
We've talked about this. We have good scripting around this that John mentioned a week or two ago about why it's so important for us to get price right, specifically as investors.
Yeah, because it was something along how we get, even $1,000 means more to us than
Exactly.
a typical agent.
And why is that though? Why are the $1,000 be more to us than to a typical agent?
That's, I don't
Does anybody know the answer to that? Why $1,000 means more to us when we're selling our houses?
Oh, because we sell more, so it adds up. If every house sells for $1,000 more at the end of the year, that's
Yeah, but
No, it's actually something else. Does anybody remember what it is? How much does an agent make if a house sells for $1,000 more?
like $6.
Yeah.
Well, $6. How much do we make if a house sells for $1,000 more?
$6.
No, $1,000.
Yeah.
Our houses that we're selling. for our company?
Okay. I thought we were talking about listings, and I was like, but it's the same.
Yeah. Right. So why do we care more
Right. Okay.
than what a typical agent cares?
Gotcha. So we were comparing listing
Listen,
side to listing
remember,
Yeah.
like you're
You're always coming from investors. We're not
Okay.
competing as another
Right.
brokerage, and it's like, we're the biggest brokerage in town. We sell for 98% of the list price, and we have this whole team. And Like, we're not doing that whole thing because that's not the profile of sellers that we're typically dealing with, who are
Right.
who are sort of assessing
don't
a lot of
care
brokerages.
anyways,
Yeah, they
yeah.
just they don't care.
Yeah. So that's, I don't know how, I don't know if that's ever really come up for me, what Terry said, but that is excellent scripting in response to that, and it's good scripting, you know, you can use that in response to other things too.
Okay.
And it's powerful, and it makes sense, and everybody will understand it.
Right.
Especially if you spell it out the way that John did, right? The difference is $6, or, well, I guess it would be.
I guess it's 30.
I think
depending on
it's
what
30,
comes
right?
together, but-
$30.
Still nothing, like that's
Or
lunch.
$1,000, right? And we
Right.
sold 50 houses last year. If you make it, if it's like, if we sell every house for 3,000 more, we sell 50 houses, that's real
Right.
money for us.
Right.
So we have to get this right.
Cool. And then, so I guess, do you want to just really quickly, like in like a minute or two, just kind of like the remainder of the meeting, right? So we sort of did the comm, you know, 2 options, the comms, then like the pricing coming soon, the marketing.
Yep. So, like, how to kind of wrap it up?
Yeah, that's just sort of the conclusion of the meeting.
So, right, you've got the marketing piece, and we've talked about that, and we can role play that more next time. But then, at this point, you have ideally, if you've gone through all that stuff and you've talked to them about rapport, you've been there a long time. If you've gone through all of those things, so it's been an hour and a half, maybe longer, and if now is sort of the time that if both parties are there, or if it's only one person on the house, like, this is the time to close, right? You need everybody there. Like, if the spouse is gone, you can't really do anything. It's not worth trying to close it. You gotta come back when they're both there, but if everybody's there, this is where you have to kind of like go in and kind of finish it. So you should know, like, if you build a lot of rapport, you should be able to diagnose that, right? You're feeling it with this person, they're digging it, they like you, you're laughing, they're understanding what you're telling them. You can generally tell if they find it persuasive. And then at that point, if you're getting a good vibe from them, say, listen, why don't we just do it? Like, you obviously want to get, now that we've talked through this, you obviously want to kind of be netting something here, like in this range. That's what makes sense for you. I mean, and that's really, the house is great. I mean, why don't I just do this for you? Something like that. I mean, it's you don't have to be like, well, I would like for you to consider using me, right? You just be like, okay, like, you got it, right? They like you. I think what we've uncovered and realized is you really need to be getting in this range. That's what makes sense for you. Let me help you do that. I can do that for you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I guess then next, so what would be most helpful for you guys next time? So we want to keep going through this and the whole flow of the meeting, start to finish. What would be most helpful for you guys?
I don't know if we have to do it next week, but an idea would be to sort of, especially one of the glasses videos, like if we kind of watched it and like we can stop it at points and like, because there's definitely some interesting stuff in some of them. Because I feel like right now we know the scripting, we're kind of stuck on these transitional areas, which I think seeing it like in real time sort of together and we can all talk about it together might be helpful.
Good.
That's good. You can certainly do it. Yeah.
Maybe having people who've been on a lot of appointments for the seller, and then having you be the agent.
Oh yeah, that would
Yep.
be good too.
Sure. We can do it. We can do the whole. We can do it for 30 minutes. You guys are gonna be bored. Yeah, we can do that. Like, do each part of it, and I'll be the agent for all of it. We can hear it in a row.
You could be your foyer guy. That would
Yeah.
Yeah, probably would be good. I mean, if we could do a version of it that was shorter,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So just
That's what I
sort
mean.
of
Some
like,
of the videos are super long, so we'd have to like pick out the pieces and like even if we did like a role play the other way.
Right. I mean, if we did role play with you as the agent, if there's a way to do a shortened version where like you just kind of like, okay, and then you sort of give the high level on it, but you don't go into all the detail, just so
Yeah.
they can see the progression and the transitions and stuff, I guess.
We can do that, and Mark has been on enough appointments. Mark can play the seller, and you can give me, you can give me a hard time. All right, you should be able to do that. Yeah. So you ask me, you can ask me questions that you've got and interrupt me, whatever, interject sort of the experiences you've had, and we'll talk through it.
Good. All right. Sounds good.